Hi, I am John Keely. Here is my description of the latent element that is life. I call this indefinable, latent element, the soul of the sympathetic elements in which it manifests itself, and which until now has been locked up in their interstitial embrace. It is the leader of all triple streams, associated with the polar negative envelope of our planet and the one most sympathetically concordant to celestial radiation. In our individual organisms, the latent soul forces, existing in the cerebral domain, are sympathetically subservient to the celestial radiating force whereby they are stimulated into action in controlling the movements of our bodies. Take away this latent element from the brain and the physical organism becomes an inert, dead mass, on the same order as a mechanical device without an energy to operate it. The polar negative machine is a mechanical brain, with all the adjuncts associated with it to sympathetically receive and distribute the polar negative force. Its sympathetic transmitter, corresponding to our sun in our planetary system, transmitting all energy from the central sun of the universe, is the medium whereby sympathetic concordance is established between it and polar sympathy. The requisites for polarizing and depolarizing keep up the action of the machine as long as it is associated with the transmitter. The force which operates the mechanical is the same as that which operates the physical brain, purely mental, emanating from celestial outreach. There is nothing in the range of philosophy which so satisfies the intellect as the comprehension of this wondrous system of sympathetic association, planned by the Creator of the celestial and terrestrial universe, for the government of all forms of matter. Nature cannot rebel against herself. The flowers of spring cannot resist the sympathetic force which calls them into bloom, any more than the latent force in intermolecular spaces can rebel and remain in neutral depths when sympathetic vibration calls it forth. What is the soul but life in latent suspension? The motion exhibited in matter shows that its soul is ever present, and yet there are men of great learning, as taught in the schools, who, after spending their lives in researching all forms of matter, deny that all living things depend on one everlasting Creator and Ruler, in whom they live and move and have their being through all time, as much as when he first breathed into them the breath of celestial radiation, and to whom they are as closely allied, still, by the workings of the great cosmical law of sympathetic association, as when the evolutionary work of creation commenced. The ancients were far better schooled in spiritual philosophy than are we of the present age. Their mythological records, in their symbolical meaning, prove this fact. They recognize this latent element as the very breath of the Almighty, the sympathetic outflow of the Trinity of Force, the triple spiritual essence of God Himself. Their conceptions of deity were greater and truer than our own. From them we learn that when God said, "Let there be light," He liberated the latent celestial element that illuminates the world, that when He breathed into man the breath of life, He impregnated him with that latent soul element that made him a living and moving being.